My people, we're ready to mount up like an eagle. Stand and fight against evil. A system rigged and deceitful. King, you can hear it when I rhyme. I'm a king, renewed in my mind. I'm a king, I got a different bloodline. I'm a king, jump, I am a king. Yeah.
Welcome to the King Talks podcast, where we're all about the truth community and discussing the things you care about because we care about you. I'm your host, Sean Slaughter, and on today's show, we'll have a guest interviewer, author and apologist, Adam Coleman. Adam's going to be interviewing Brandon Porter II. Brandon is the author of the book, If Obama Had a Son, Truth You Never Thought About. They're going to be discussing fatherhood, the importance of pouring into your son, how his father really poured into him, and then we're also going to dive into his new book, If Obama Had a Son. Adam, take it away.
My people, we're ready to mount up like an eagle. Stand and fight against evil. A system rigged and deceitful. King, you can hear it when I rhyme. I'm a king, renewed in my mind. I'm a king, I got a different bloodline. I'm a king, jump, I am a king. I'm a king.
Welcome to the King Talks podcast, where we're all about truth, community, and discussing the things you care about because we care about you. Of course, I'm your host, Adam Coleman. And today with us, man, I'm excited to have a dynamic guest, man, a young brother and author, of a book that I'm just really been enthralled by, and I'm excited to be able to dig into it and pick his brain a little bit for you guys. I want to welcome to the show, Brother Brandon Porter II.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me, man. It's nothing short of an honor.
Hey, man, we're glad you could be with us, man. I was looking forward to this interview because, as I said, as I was working my way through this book, there's so many things really caught my attention and stuck out that I wanted to kind of throw at you and have you expound upon. But before we dig into your book, If Obama Had a Son, I'd like the audience to get a glimpse at the author behind the pages, so to speak, because I got the sense that your book really flowed from your story, and hopefully we can get into that a little bit. But tell us about your background and what inspired you to take up writing as a means of making an impact in the world around you.
Absolutely, yeah. So essentially, I went to school, went off to Morehouse College in 2013, in pursuit of my career in finance. And recently after, I would say, that first year, my freshman year of experience, man, I got into some things, I saw a lot of things coming from Memphis to Atlanta. It was a huge culture shock for me. I had to get acclimated, of course, to a new city, new surroundings, new people, a new way of life, kind of being on my own. And my freshman year, really, that was a hard hit for me. I was able to see some things, go through some things that taught me a lot, man. And I actually got back home, for summer break after I did pretty well. My freshman year, to God, I give all the glory for that,
Yeah,
but,
amen. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with everything that was going on. But I back that May, probably the end of that May, man, and my father really was the one who inspired me to, write this book. He kind of asked me something. He said, Brandon, think about it. What if Obama had a son? So of course I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. He said, think of this riddle, man. What is it the most powerful man in the world wishes he had? But if he had it, he wouldn't be the most powerful man in the world. So I'm like, I just got back from school, all types of crazy classes I just finished taking. I told him, I said, look, man, Dad, I don't want to do a riddle. I don't want to do anything else. I want to kind of go kick it with my friends, hang out. But he said, just think about it, I said, you know what? Wow, what is it? What does it, the most powerful man in the world have? First of all, who is it? At the time, it was Barack Obama, the leader of the free world, the president of the United States. So I'm like, what is it that he doesn't have? You know what I'm saying? He thought about it and he said, imagine if he had a son. So immediately I began to ponder, I'm kind of anxious about it. And I think about it all of a sudden, like, wow, take a 10-year-old black boy, grows up in the White House, takes 2 terms. So that's 8 years. By the time he leaves out 18, he's potentially more powerful, politically savvy and popular than established politicians that are already 60, 65 years of age, So I'm thinking like, wow, okay, it took about 219 years to get a black man elected. Now the possibility of having another one elected in the next 20, maybe 25 years, could possibly be a threat to America and society in general. You know, so I'm like, wow, what does it mean to have a black boy grow up and become a man in the White House? You know, that's possibly my age. How would that even look? So, you know, of course, I became engulfed with the thought. And God gave me the inspiration to continue to write at about the time I believe the Michael Brown situation was unfolding and happening. So things that were just really, you know, placed in the atmosphere that were going on simultaneously as I'm trying to crack down, you know, and write this book. The truth be told, the most I've probably ever written was probably like a 15 to 20 page paper, you know, and that was for a class. You know,
wow,
so I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm like, wow, how in the world can I sit down and actually do something that we as black men are never, let alone expected to do, really even read a book? You know, they say if you want to hide $1 million from a black man, put it in what? A book. You know, so it was just kind of shocking to me for me to take, and I knew at that moment when I came back from school, I had to take a turn, not for myself, but for this generation, not for myself, but for the people that were depending upon me. Not for myself, but for those that couldn't afford to even go off to a great school such as Morehouse College that had the history that it did. You know, I became very thankful and grateful to be in the position that I was in, which made me understand the point of sacrifice, man. So that's really how things birthed, you know, and since then I've just been growing from that. I'm still a young black man. I'm only 22 years old, you know, and I go as hard as I can every day, man, just to make the most of what I can while I can do it, you know, because somebody else isn't granted with the same privileges.
You know, what's interesting, man, is, you know, when I hear you, you know, describe your story, you know, the word legacy, you know, comes to mind, you know, because I hear you talking about your dad planting that seed, you know, kind of, you know, with that riddle, you know, getting you to think about something a little bit deeper than your immediate circumstances, right? And then, you know, in turn, you then kind of, you know, stepping out into, you know, being this author and having in mind the impact, you know, that you're really transcending something that's to be expected of the typical black man, and you're, you know, trying to project that out, you know, so that other people, I guess, can maybe follow your example, you know, in a sense. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you. And I guess my question would be, you know, that's pretty, I mean, that's outstanding, particularly, you know, for a young person, you know, being a millennial. What do you think what is it about, what are some of the barriers, I guess you could say, that prevent other millennials from really taking on that sense of responsibility and looking outside of their immediate circumstances and really doing something powerful in the world?
Man, it's really, in my opinion, Mr. Coleman, it's what's being portrayed to us on a daily basis. So if you look at it, we're actually trained, man, almost in today's society as millennials to think that success is going to come overnight. You know, if it doesn't, it's a problem, you know. So the essence or the morality of hard work has become something that's very far-fetched for us, in my opinion. We're attached to cell phones, the iPads. We're attached to the newest gizmos and gadgets, you know, to make or pave a way of escape to make things easier for us. But when it comes down to the essence of hard work, that's something that we've kind of relinquished almost and got away from. So in my opinion, everything that we're doing today that's portrayed, maybe whether it be music videos, you know what I'm saying, this and that, whatever it is, the essence of success has become, if I may say, microwavable. You know, people don't want to use that oven anymore, you know, and that's something with us. We have to understand the thing of time, you know, the urgency of time. That's the chapter that I have in the book. That's so important for us to understand that timing is everything. You know, we can't have everything when we want it, but when we get it, we have to make the most of it, you know, but it's going to take work. It's going to take sacrifice, which is huge for us. It's going to take giving up everything that you are right now to be everything that you will be in the future. Everything that you have right now, you know, your greatest investment, whatever it is, being willing to give that up right now for what you will become is something that we often struggle with, man. And I believe that we're able to take a turn if we just change our viewpoints, you know, go and actually, let's say, research some things, whatever, if it's something or a policy or something that we want to be involved in, a career, you know, research it, you know, don't just let it fall by the wayside or have somebody else tell you what it is. You go and find out. You know, if you want to have or pursue a career in something, you see what others have done to work their way to the top. Not the easiest route, you know, because the easiest always doesn't give the best results. You know, the hardest work, if you work hard every single day, you're bound to blossom, you know, but we have to get back to the essence of hard work, to the essence of doing what we need to do until we can do what we can do or do what we want to do, you know, means to an end. That means to an end for us.
Yeah, that's strong medicine right there, bro. we already need deep in it, man. I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it. So, you know, let's get to this book a little bit, man. So, you know, If Obama Had a Son, you know, that's the title of your work. And, you know, the book really looks to, I think, provoke thought about what Obama and his family really represented to the U.S. From a very unique perspective. Give us an overview as to what you hope the reader to glean from If Obama Had a Son.
Well, starting off, I would hope that the reader pulls off. First of all, a lot of people are offended at the title, you know, because and quite frankly, most of them are women that do take offense to it at first, but they're so intrigued with it, you know, and I appreciate that because it's helped me to develop and explain this a little better. But the book, If Obama Had a Son, is almost offensive because it's like, wow, okay, first of all, you know, President Obama, I still call him president, you know.
Okay,
had
all right.
two daughters. You know, he had two daughters, Sasha Millet, and they can very well follow in his footsteps, you know, and I hope they would to achieve everything he has, and they can do more, of course. Of course, one of them is already going to Harvard, which is a huge accomplishment, you know, but I had to write from the perspective of a young man. And the book, I hope the reader would gain, you know, if it's a man, a significance of sonship, fatherhood essentials, really, and get accustomed to knowing what it is from the perspective of really a young black man to grow up in today's society and what's expected of us, you know, develop certain characteristics that will push you to be the best you can, you know, push you to be, in my opinion, which is one of my favorite chapters, the next in line. You know, what does that mean? What does that mean for power to truly prepare power? You know, they say never let a naked man sell you clothes. You know, and that goes so far, you know, because, look, if somebody is working excellently in what they do, you want to follow excellence. You don't want to follow the person that's half-stepping every step of the way. You know, that's not the way that we wish to go. You know, I have another chapter entitled The Judicial Imbalance. I want people to really see what it means for a young black man to grow up and grow with the I would say the alternative standards that we have in comparisons to others. You know, under the hoodie, which was a reference to the Trayvon Martin situation. You know, what is it like to be under an umbrella almost of statistics? You know, like I was saying earlier, to be raised, almost black men are raised in a sense to not be, I don't want to say not be successful, but we work more so towards not being a statistic than we do being successful, you know? How does that work? You know, why can't we be born, you know, in a sense of, to feel a sense of legacy and not in a sense of entitlement, but to a sense of, wow, I can work to do whatever it is I put my mind to. You know, I shouldn't have to be ashamed or scared to walk in this way because of a risk, you know, and become a statistic. I can do whatever it is that I want to do as long as it's going to benefit the people that I'm working for, you know. So I hope to gain that. It's for my women as well. I have a chapter called To the Son of an Absent Father, and I'm praising really the single woman for being who she is in a man's life, you know, black, white, orange, yellow, purple, whatever it is. But the women, even in the sense of legacy, people have to understand that woman carries legacy in their bodies before it's even birthed. The woman carries legacy. They have to nurture the legacy, you know, and that's an amazing job. That's something that I, as a man, could never understand, you know, only them. But some women are out here truly accomplishing that and raising men better than some of their own fathers, truth be told, and they're to be praised for that. You know, they're to really extremely be praised for that. Even President Obama himself, you know, he said a woman that was very impactful in his life was his grandmother, you know, in raising him to be a wholesome man and become the first black president of the United States. So when women see that, you know, and see and read the book and they get to that chapter, they say, oh, wow. So this is where it is. This is what it's about. It's not, so much distracting anymore, because I explain in the book that they are that person in that sense of legacy that has to nurture us. Even in my life personally, my mother, she has a sense of excellence, man. The perfection that I have every day, I really get it from her, and then I try to, I'm not going to say that I have every day, but that I try to achieve every day. And I'm sure all of our mothers told us this. Well, most of them did. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all, and that's what she instilled in me, man. And we have to understand that together we all have to work, as one, especially as young Black millennials, men and women. We have to work together to become one, to go further, and make it happen and make reality happen. So I hope they would grab all of these topics, from the book, man, and really pursue to live beyond the potential, man. Live beyond what's expected of us.
Yeah. Actually, I like what you said too. Something that really resonated with me. Talking about how you can't really live life trying not to fail. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a way to really achieve your goals, is trying not to fail. It kind of makes me think about, I can't remember who I heard say it, but there was a football coach that talked about, if you're out on the field trying not to get hurt, then you're more likely to get hurt. You know what I'm saying?
It makes sense, man.
But I think that's so true, man. We're trying to not be a statistic so much that we actually don't, pursue the things that we could be or could do, man. I think that's powerful, man. I think that's powerful.
Exactly.
So, with that being said, man, let me ask you this question. We often talk about the impact of fatherlessness, right, upon the children of our community. But your book really emphasized the hope and expectancy that a father experiences or looks forward to in having a son. Now, how would you describe the negative impact of fatherlessness on the fathers? I guess, in other words, like, for men who are out here having children and not staying in the picture, how are they impacted by missing out on the opportunity to be a dad?
Wow. In my opinion, I'm of course not a father yet, thankfully, because
right. Yeah, take your time, brother. I got 3 of them at the crib now, man. Take your time, bro.
I promise you, I'm not rushing it, man. I promise you, I'm not.
Right.
But I've been blessed, man, to see and experience what a true and real father is, and I'm thankful for that. So I feel like the lesson that they will learn in that sense is, you don't know what somebody will become. You're going to miss out on a period of growth that is essential for them. You're going to miss out on a period of growth that's not only important for them, but for you, because my father tells me all the time, man, that in teaching my brother and myself, he's had periods of growth for himself. It's taught him how to become a better man, to make better decisions, because he not only has to take care of himself and my mother now, but he has 2 sons. It's teaching him more responsibility as the days go by. It's teaching him how to make better decisions. So you're missing out. I feel like a father that, abnegates that decision to go forth and take care of a child that they made the decision to bring into this world, or you're going to miss out on some type of blessing, man. You're going to miss out on something because you didn't want to accept the responsibility that came with your actions. Whether it be good or not, you didn't want to respect that decision for you to bring a child in this world, man, and you can't take care of them. How does that look? How much of a coward, in my opinion, could you be? Regardless of your situation or not, you made a decision, and you knew what came with that decision if things went south. And you still not going to stand up and respect that, So, man, you get the energy that you put out in this world, and so many times that's why we have stories, of course, all the time of, sons and daughters becoming the who's who, and their parents trying to come back into their lives, or their fathers trying to come back into their lives at the height of their success, and it doesn't work like that always. Everybody isn't blessed with that. Everybody isn't blessed in favor with that thought of forgiveness immediately, and if a man or a woman finds it in their heart to find that, to exercise that thought of forgiveness, then, bless them in that sense. But it doesn't, I would say probably 75% of the time, it doesn't work like that, so you're missing out on a potential accident that could have been a blessing to you, in reality, man. So that's my thought on that.
Got you. Yeah. And you mentioned in the book how, having that son is, potentially, an opportunity for that child to be an extension of your own purpose and how you impact the world. And I kind of think about, as you were describing earlier, how the fact that actually you and I are having this conversation right now, came about as a result of your dad, sowing that seed of an idea, of a concept in you, and then lo and behold, it turns into, this book, and that's an example, I think, of how that father to son exchange can really extend one's impact. When you look at your upbringing and kind of where you are now, is that dynamic between you and your dad something that you kind of just became aware of, or did you always kind of have a sense of him kind of pouring into you and really the weight of what that means?
That was something that he almost had to explain to me. It was something that I witnessed, of course, because of who he was, and the great man that he was in my life, and my mother as well. But for that sense of legacy is something that I had to be there to witness. Growing up, I saw what it was, and I kind of understood it. Speaking from a perspective of a young child, like, this is my dad, this is what he's supposed to do. I almost took it for granted, so to speak. I felt like he had to put food on our table. I felt like he had to put clothes on our back. I felt like it was his job to pick us up and take us to school. I felt like it was his job to take us up and take us to our basketball games. I felt like it was his job to pay for our team shoes. I felt like it was his job to do whatever it is to put gifts under those trees under Christmas. You know what I'm saying? I felt like it was his job to do all of the little things that so many weren't allowed the opportunity to see, man. So for me, it just took growth, and in my teenage years, I got to see that because a lot of my friends extended, and I got to see some of those relationships that they had from their parents pour into me. A lot of my friends that grew up, I started to see weren't a lot of the same privileges that I had, man. And that really instilled in me a sense of thankfulness. It really showed me how great of a father, that I really had in my house, and why brother and myself should be thankful for that, man, and not take it for granted. I was always taught, if you're blessed, you don't have to complain about being blessed. Just know how to handle it and know how to walk, So what I would do was, take some of those friends and some of those guys that I had that didn't have fathers in their lives, my dad would adopt, essentially. He would bring them in. He said, look, whenever you guys want to hang out, go to a game, this and that, you bring them around. You show them, you allow them to what it's like to have a father. So he didn't just hold that off or close that gate off to me. He allowed that same privilege to extend to my friends. So even if they weren't granted to see that they could see it in my household, and see what it was truly like to have a father that wanted your best interest at heart, and wanted them to come to fruition and manifest, So it was something that I had to grow into and to develop a sense of this legacy, even with his father. He was very hard on my grandfather, W.L. Porter, extremely hard on my father, and he's the same with my brother and I, but I had to see that and actually realize what it was in comparison to somebody else's situation. That's what it took for me to know that, wow, you have legacy in your household, and you can't let this go to waste, and in the book, I even talk about the sense of legacy, of course, in the fact that if you weren't granted to see it in your house or see it anywhere around you, it's your time to start that. After reading this book, it is your duty, it is your obligation, because you are no longer ignorant to the fact that somebody, whoever you bring in this world, especially a son or a daughter, as a father, they need you. You're obligated now because you know what it takes. You've been exposed to what is right after reading this book. And it is your duty to start that. You can do it. Just because you have your father's genes doesn't mean you have to wear the same ones he had. Let's get that understood and clear up front. But you have to know what it takes. You have to be willing to take the step that he didn't. And that all goes full circle and it comes full circle, man. But it took seeing somebody else's situation almost for me to get it. And I'm so thankful that was provided, man, and that I was blessed with that situation, and that I don't take it for granted.
Yeah, man, that's powerful, man. And you said something a second ago that actually I want to go back to for a second. You talked about your dad really stepping into a role of fathering, somebody else, like somebody, not biologically his son, but really kind of taking on that role, for in your friend's life and so forth. Talk about just the impact that one can have, you know, being a father, I guess, to the community in a sense, you know what I'm saying, or just kind of taking on that role where they see that need.
Absolutely, man. They say it takes a village almost to raise a child, and that's so very true. You know, that can't be any more true than it's put straightforward to us. But it's so important that people understand a cultural experience of inclusiveness. And what I mean by that is they see so many different aspects of life. You know, my father has a church, of course, he's a pastor. And, I totally disagree with the thought of most people when I tell them that. Say, oh, wow, PKs are the worst one. I said, well, I got something to prove. You know, but
right.
The name of our church, man, is Greater Community Temple. You know, a church with a community at its heart. And that's something that really we uphold to, you know, and it's deep in my roots, man. And it's so important that we not only touch our house, but you touch the community. You know, you go out and you reach somebody that doesn't have the means to get whatever it is they want, and you provide that. You help with that, not because you're supposed to or however, just because you do it to get, you know, credit for doing it, but because that's the right thing to do, you know, because you were granted and blessed. I was raised on the principle, man, that blessed people bless people, and that's what we do. You know, it has to become, you know, and I take that to heart, man. Matthew 7:7 says, asking it will be given, seeking you shall find, knock and the door shall be open, you know. And I truly believe that sometimes you are the answer to somebody's prayer as long as you listen to your right conscience to do the right thing. You know, that could be something as small as, look, paying for the lady in front of you in the grocery store. You don't know why you did it. Her stuff may have been $10 to $15, but she may have needed that. She may have needed that for something else, to a light bill, to a utility bill, whatever it is. But you never know. But when you activate or you act in a sense of, you know, blessing somebody else and doing something not because you want to be seen doing it, but because it's the right thing to do, when you act in that manner, the world is limitless, man. You have nothing but community to lean on. You know, if we look at ourselves, this is all that we have, you know. Let's be honest and real, you know. Racism is very systemic even in these things like that, and that's why I believe in society today, a lot of this political controversy has been trying to really tear our community apart, man. But innocence and truth are born in delivery rooms every single day. Every single day. Innocence and truth are born in these delivery rooms, man. And it's up to us to raise them in the sense of understanding what it is, what is love, what is compassion, what is true empathy. You know, how do we do these things? It starts with the community, man, and you have to have it at heart. You have to have the community at heart before you go and do anything with the world.
Well, you know, let me go there for a second, man, because I feel like so many times, you know, the voice of millennials kind of gets, you know, drowned out or overshadowed sometimes in discussions that are just predominant in our society today. And, you know, let me just kind of go here with it. When you look at, I guess, from the standpoint of someone in your age group, the racial separatism, you know, that you refer to in your book, from your perspective, where do people see the direction of race relations in America today? Like, would you say that among millennials it's kind of hopeful, or is it, you know, give us kind of a, you know, the pulse of the millennials as it pertains to the race issue in America?
Wow. So in terms of where we are right now, it's kind of do or die, you know, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is we go by what we see on the media. As sad as that is, as truthful as they might seem, you know, a lot of us don't go and see what are the true facts. And that comes back to how we get away from that is understanding our history, you know, understanding what came before us. You know, history is bound to repeat itself. Nothing under the sun is new. Nothing. Absolutely nothing under the sun is new, but we have to understand what came before us. We have to understand who came before us and why they did that, so we can separate truth from fiction, first and foremost. But the stage in which we're at, man, it's heavy. You know, we don't know whether to you know, celebrate Trump or contradict what he says or go against him, this and that. But it all depends on what we see in the media. Of course, those who know right know that the world, or hopefully God can save it right now, our country, you know, but it's going at a declining rate at a huge high speed. And that's what we know is truth. But, you know, somebody might have a social media clip of Trump handing out, I don't know, diapers to a family or something, and they're like, look, oh, you know, the president has an extremely compassionate heart, he's doing this, and that's all they see. So they may be on that side, but they don't know the history of that. You understand what I'm saying? They don't know the background behind it. It comes to educating yourself. You know, if you want to, you can never escape something that you choose not to understand, ever. You can never escape something you choose not to understand. So it's up to us to go back and really listen and, you know, understand who these forefathers to come before us in history. That's why this King talk is so important. You know, a lot of times, even at school at Morehouse, of course, they say that we overuse Dr. King, but you can't overuse excellence. You know, he was a pivot. He was the pivot of success. Malcolm Gladwell has a book entitled The Tipping Point, which was so key to me. I love it. And it describes the moment in which, for a person or even a group of people, that your thoughts start to change for the better. You know, your career starts to change the moment that you understand your purpose, you know, and what comes with that moment, you know. And I believe when Dr. King, you know, accepted his purpose, that everything fell in place, man. You know, when he delivered that speech in Memphis, Tennessee, you know, at Mason Temple that night, he understood his purpose. You know, he was okay with being able to die for what he thought, man. And that's the point that we have to be willing to get to that point, because we know it is right, and because we know we're living our purpose, and because we know somebody else is going to be going to be able to go an extra mile that we're not, that everything we're doing is not in vain, man. We have to be willing to step up. And it sounds so dramatic, but it's real. But to almost get to the point, not almost, but we have to get to the point where we'll be willing to sacrifice what we have, man, for the betterment of ourselves, man, for the betterment of your children, you know. And I don't think a lot of us are at that point right now, because we're just not educated on the passion that others had to come before us, you know, and that comes back with looking back and going through these history books, just to do it, you know, just to educate ourselves. It should really never be a time, and this sounds so dramatic, but it should never be a time that somebody around my age or even younger, really in college at all, says, look, I'm bored. You know, you should never be bored, man. It's always a time to go back and educate yourself. It's always a time to go back and find out more than what you know, because if you want to exceed where most people tarry, you have to exceed what most people know. People, anybody that's outworking you or doing more than you, is because they've chosen to educate themselves more than you have. You know, talent only takes you so far. A work ethic has to be put into that. So what we have to do as millennials is choose to work ourselves for our passion, choose to work ourselves to figure out who, you know, our staples and pillars in this community are, so we can understand what's going on right now, so we can truly understand not only what's going on, but how we can have a positive impact to make a sense on this sense of racism that's going on right now, man. So I believe the heat at which the millennials are going, it's some of us are hopeful, you know, but some of us need some work, and even myself, I need work daily. But it comes back to that work day, man, and choosing to be the best you can every single day, and going back to understand what's really ahead of us, and if not, understand that we're going to suffer the consequences of ignorance.
Man, hard work, brother, man. Nothing beats hard work. But you got to be feeling motivated, man. I'm ready to go to the gym or something like that. You know, work out for a couple pounds or something. I'm ready to get up and do something, man. That's all right. That's all right. Let me switch gears a little bit. I want to read an excerpt from the book.
Oh, yeah.
This is chapter 10 of If Obama Had a Son. And I want to read an excerpt and then have you expound on it a bit for us right quick. So just check this out, and then you kind of give us your thoughts. So you said that people often use the metaphorical phrase, you should never judge a book by its cover. But in today's society, as long as the cover is presentable, anything can reside on the inside. Separatism has existed in this country for hundreds of years, and quite frankly, it has been silently awakened over the course of these past few years. And that's end quote right there. Very powerful statement, man. Now, in regard to the part about as long as the cover being presentable, anything can reside on the inside, I thought that was powerful, man. Give us a broader picture of what you were conveying to the reader right there.
Absolutely. So in today's society, of course, where that means exactly what it says, man. You know, we can be whatever we want to be as long as we look the part. You know, as long as you look the part, you can get promoted to a situation, you know. Let's say, for instance, just somebody who is, let's say, something typical, you know, going in at Morehouse College. I'll speak from my personal experience. If you look the part, you know, if you got on a full suit, and you go out somewhere else, you know, let's say in the real city where it's not, because Morehouse for me was kind of almost an oasis. I'm like, man, well, I'm around a lot of brothers. You know, when we went out and we saw somebody else that didn't look like us, it was almost like, wow. You know, I thought for a second we went in Atlanta, you know, but let's say we go out, man, and we go to a corporate function or whatever it may be. You can go out and, you know, the guys that were the big company guys that were in the corporate issues, you know, let's say I had on a full suit, you know, tie, everything, the whole time, you know, tailored, full fitted. But I had no substance. There was no substance within me to speak. You know, to them, I completely looked the part. You know, or it may be another guy, you know, his suit is baggy. His shirts may not match. You know, his tie may not match his suit. But immediately, he was neglected. But this guy is the one with the 4.0. Let's be understood. You know, a lot of times, immediately, we judge that. We judge it immediately before we get to know a person, not because that's just something we do, but because we're trained to be scared of something that we can't understand.
Right.
And to expound upon further on that, we have to know that you not only have to look the part in certain situations, but you have to have the substance behind it, you know. And if somebody doesn't look like you need to go beyond that to find out what it is they know, you know, understand them for who they are, not what they have on. You know, that comes by that, you know, understand them for who they are as a person, because you never know when you'll need them. You know, you never know when the timetables may turn and change up. You know, you have to understand a person for who his heart is, man, and understand that anybody that is brought to you is for a reason. Nothing happens on accidents. I'm a strong believer in that, man, but you have to have the humbleness to be able to have a conversation, simply just have a conversation with somebody who doesn't look like you, or somebody who doesn't have the means to get what you have, somebody who doesn't have the means to put on the newest J's, somebody who doesn't have the means to put on the Gucci, to put on the Moncler, you know, whatever it may be. Somebody has to have the humility to speak to somebody as a human being, not for what they have on, man. But we're taught so many times in today's society, man, as long as you look it, you can do it. As long as you look it. You know, but it doesn't work out that way. You know, everybody isn't brought up the same way, like we said, but that takes a sense of humility, man, to get to understand a person and maybe teach them. You know, let's say for the guy that wants to go in for the corporate interview, whatever it is, you show them the way. You found out now that he's a genius because you took upon that humility to speak to him and understand his name and get his major, you know, this and that. And now you can tell him, look, you know, my man, when you have on that collar shirt underneath this suit jacket, you got to tuck it in. You know, it's best that you put on that belt. You know, it's best that you sit up and clean yourself up nice, but you do it in a sense of humility. You do it because you know that he has the potential to go further, you know, versus just accepting somebody who looks like it, you know, and it's all kumbaya, you know. So that's what it goes back down to, man, just not only looking the part when you have certain situations, but having substance and having the humility to not judge somebody that may not be able to look the part yet, but having the wisdom enough to know them, to teach them or coach them on how to get to that point.
Yeah, man, that's powerful, man. I think another thing that kind of ties in, as I was hearing you speak, is that, and it actually goes back to what you were saying about just living in this social media, you know, driven age, you know, this media driven age, is that it seems to me a lot of times we're dealing with people based upon the caricature that we've kind of gotten from the media. You know what I'm saying? So you might have a white person who really on their day to day doesn't interact with black people. You know, so really all they know is what they see on BET or Blackish or something like that. You know what I'm saying? That's about the extent of what they know about black people, right? You know, and then vice versa. It might be vice versa. You know, some black people, they may not really interact with white folks all that much. So all they know is what they see on, you know, King of Queens or maybe, you know, Donald Trump. They think everybody's like Donald Trump, you know, and unfortunately, I feel like we're still living out this legacy of segregation, you know, where really, the federal government set the tone of who could live around whom. you know, and it's like
Right.
because our communities are still so divided, we're not in proximity with each other, and so we just end up interacting based on what we think we know about other people
Right.
groups, but it's not really
Right.
real. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's interesting to think about, man, because that's what we go through on a daily day-to-day basis, man. It's like you only know me from what you see in the media. You understand what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I may go to, it was actually a situation that I had, man, and I believe I was somewhere when I was in school. I just used to, and the book first released, I would go out, man, and I would take the book. I would always have a copy wherever I went. And I believe I may have been in a store, a clothing store, something in Atlanta. And I have a T-shirt to go along with it. And it says, "If Obama had a son," of course. And I went, and the man said to me, I actually was getting on the elevator in the morning. He saw my shirt. He said, "Wow, what does that mean?" And immediately I just kind of began to tell him that. I didn't tell him about the book, and that I wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
And he started to kind of dumb me down with facts and things like that to try to, really challenge my intelligence. So at that moment, I said, wow, first of all, he's judging the cover that I'm in. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pull this out on him. I let him know that, look, this is my book, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Immediately he says, wow, who are you to write a book? At the time I was probably 19 or 20 years old.
Wow.
He said, who are you? What do you have to write a book? What kind of titles do you have or paper do you have to be able to do such a thing?
Wow.
And I was shocked. Because it's always, we hear about these stories of racism, but it's only so many times that you come and you actually experience that firsthand. So
Sure.
when he said that to me, immediately my thought was, who am I not to do it? I broke it down. I started breaking down the statistics of everything to him. I started to really educate him. And what he was, afraid of in that moment was being educated by a 19, 20-year-old black man. And in that sense, by the time we got off of that elevator, it may have been a few floors, but I had enough. I perfected the time of doing an elevator pitch, and it really came from that moment within 30 seconds, man. And I perfected it, and at that time, he was educated by a 19, 20-year-old black man,
Wow.
and that was humbling for me. But it took that time to say, look, you're not going to judge me. You understand what I'm saying? You're not going to sit here and dumb me down for what, you expect of me. You think I may only be, a rapper or whatever. I'm in Atlanta. I got my hat turned to the back. I got my T-shirt on. I got my tennis shoes on. But you're not going to dumb me down to something that is the expected height of success for who I am. You don't know if I'm a doctor. You don't know if I'm a financial advisor already. You don't know if I'm a neurosurgeon, a heart surgeon, whatever. But when I open my mouth, you're going to respect me. At the end of the day. At the end of the day, when I open my mouth, you're going to respect me, man. So that's the point that we have to be willing to get to, is if we're approached with ignorance like that, not going off, not being outrageous to where they're proven right, getting ignorant and, just making what I call a world star moment. But you open your mouth, and I learned this. I learned this from my grandfather. He was a man of a few words, but when he opened his mouth, he knew what he was saying, and he said what he said to mean it, in a few amount of words, man. So you make them respect you by the knowledge that you've accumulated. You don't have to get ignorant, but what you can do is have love and have the heart to educate them in that moment, and you keep it pushing.
Yeah, and I think, having the presence of mind in that moment to not be thrown off, because like you said, obviously, there's still racists out there, but thank God, America's not to the point where, say, like it was in the 60s where you had, lynchings every day and things like that. I mean, a lot of times you don't necessarily, come into contact with just the overt racism, in that sort of way. But and that drives me back to something that you said in the book. I mean, you talk about the silent awakening of separatism, in recent years. I think that's pretty profound. Kind of talk about that a little bit. Like, what do you think is the cause for this silent awakening, that you mentioned in the book?
All right, so now we have a president who has openly accepted, in my opinion, the thought and the practice of racism. So now everybody who felt like it was their job or their duty to keep quiet about it, and like I said, keep it in their hearts. When I say that the segregation is still real, maybe not on the signs of water fountains, but in the hearts of men, or what's coming or what's been in their heart is now coming out to fruition, coming out to the open because they have a leader in place who does that, who exhibits that, in my opinion. So now it's like, oh, wow. Well, the man who we have, who's the leader, the most important man in the world, or the most powerful man in the world now, he's on our side. He's exuberating all these things. So now we can do it. Now I can be loquacious about my racist thoughts. Now I can go out and I choose to speak to anybody, whoever, how I want to speak to them. And nothing's going to happen to me because I'm always going to be protected by the leader that I have. We got somebody in the office now, in my opinion, who's completely ignorant to the thoughts of somebody that doesn't look like him, man. And it's disgusting. So there's a silent awakening beginning to happen now. People are slowly but surely, it's almost like racism is rising from the dead. When I think about it, I think of like, a scary movie or something where skeletons coming up and they're walking like zombies or something like that. To put it into a visual term, but people are now starting to come out and show their true hearts, man. And it's disgusting, but at the same time, it's like, thank you for that. I needed to see that. You understand what I'm saying? It was a commercial, actually. I'll never forget it. And I believe, I forgot what corporation, but it was a little girl, it was a little black girl and a little white girl. They were on the playground and they were playing, man. And the black girl was, of course, playing with the white girl, having a great time. And then the white mother came and grabbed her daughter and pulled her away from the black girl and said, it's time to go. She said, Mommy, why is it time to leave right now? Why do I have to get up and get out of here? I'm having fun. I'm playing with my friend. You never made me get up and leave from the playground after, 10 minutes. Why do we have to leave now? She said, we have to go. She said, you're not allowed to play with her. The little girl looked up at her mother and said, Mommy, why can't I play with her? She said, we have to go. You cannot play anymore. You have to go. And she continued to ask, but the moral of that story was the little girl never got a response from her mother. There was never a response she could give her that was valid as to why the little girl had to move and play, because this is something that is, like I said before, systemic. It is something that is taught. It is something that is preached on a daily basis to their youth, and that's something that we have to get away from. So once, even with some of my friends, and I was shocked that I grew up in high school, and I went to pretty diverse high school, but some of the guys that I went off with, man, that were even close friends to me, at the time of Trump's, quote unquote, the reign, whatever, his political campaign, these guys started coming out the curtains, openly, Trump signs all on the trucks, this and that. I'm like, wow, man, you guys know what he represents. And this is not something that you've ever shown to me before, but it has to be something that's been in your house. It has to be something that's been, displayed to you from a point. And I know if I confronted you about it, the only thing you would have to tell me is that I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm talking about, and that Trump is right. Why is that? Can you explain to me a valid reason? Can you be logical as to a reason why we should build a wall against a group of people who have helped us almost build this nation to what it is today? Can you help me understand why it is that I have to be a racist against somebody who has been intelligent enough to come as a black people and invent more things than this nation could have ever known, and be a big pivot of success for this nation than almost you could have been, really more than you could have it displayed, So understanding that sense of systemic hatred is key in this silent awakening, man. A lot of people don't even know why they're, quote unquote, woke up to racism and they're doing it openly. It's just something they're doing because they've been taught for years and for years, And it's something that's unfortunate, man, but we have to take it for what it is. And like I said, know how to operate and move against that.
Yeah, and that actually makes me think of something that you said in If Obama Had a Son. I believe it was in chapter 8. And it really caught my attention because it was just really alarming and somewhat sobering. But you talk about how something I think is true, and is a very biblical truth, I think, how tragedy or suffering just has a way of bringing us together, Talk to us a little bit about, given that separatism that you just spoke about earlier, do you think it's an unfortunate reality that it might take something like a tragedy? I think you mentioned in the book, like how we were during 9/11, or just after 9/11, rather, where everybody was kind of coming together and we were mourning together, and you had people kind of reaching across the aisle. given that just heinous situation. Do you think it may be an unfortunate reality given where things are that something like that, it might take something like that for us to really see these barriers broken down?
Absolutely. It's almost, man, it's really heartbreaking to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I break it down to a smaller level. You know, you can have a person that's extremely hard-headed, man. That person, you say, look, don't put your hand in that hot water. It's boiling right now. And they say, okay, let me try it. You know, but it almost takes for them to experience that, for them to know, okay, that water is boiling hot, and if it's boiling hot and I touch it, I'm going to be hurt from it. You know, it takes a tragedy or something for them to appreciate what was already there, you know, and or what guidance they had already been given. But yes, like in the sense of 9/11, man, everything was kumbaya. You know, after that situation, we
Mm-hmm.
held hands, stood in unity for a select amount of time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
let's say even with the flooding recently and the hurricanes in Houston, everybody was together. Everybody was on one boat. You know, man. But a couple of months after that, it's back to the normal game. It's back to the same things we've been going through on a day-to-day basis, man. And it's so important that we understand the same moments that we have in these tragedies, that can be extended beyond when we go through a tragedy. You know, that should be extended in day-to-day life, you know, reasoning, understanding, compassion, empathy, you know, but you can't control everybody, man. That's one thing I've learned for sure. People are going to be who they want to be, and they're going to be that because that's what's in their heart. You know, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. You better believe them. And you have to take that for what it is, man. But it's such a shame that it takes a tragedy, you know, to happen. You know, a child dying in a neighborhood, you know, that everybody was fun and friendly with, to come together, you know, for the mourning of that family. And shortly after, you know, Lord forbid, the memory of that child is gone, it's back to the same thing. You know, and we have to get away from that hypocritical spirit, in my opinion, you know, that hypocritical mindset. That can't be something that we use and lean on day to day, but we have to get away from it and figure out a way to honestly and logically get across the point of equality, man, and why that my skin color is definitely different from yours, but the same potential lies between both of us, you know. But I'm not going to let you disrespect me because yours looks a certain way. Please understand that. You will never disrespect me because yours does, you know. But it's so unfortunate, man.
Yeah, that's heavy, man. That's heavy. Well,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
coming full circle, man. You know, come around full circle. Yeah, let me just ask you this here. I've heard authors say that the writing process itself, you know, for a project like this, can be transformative for them. You know, what kinds
Right.
of things did you reevaluate maybe in your own life and your own thinking? You know, what did this process kind of bring out of you in terms of some kind of internal transformation for yourself?
Man, honestly, it was very humbling for me. And at that moment, really, I believe that May, I began on the book, and the book was finished and done, printed and in my dorm room on November the 15th. So it took almost between 5 months to really get the book out. It's about 162 pages, but throughout that entire process, man, for me, it was a spirit of and a facet of humbleness that came across me. And at that moment, that for about 2 to 3 weeks, man, I had writer's block. I just didn't know what to say and how to say it. But, you know, eventually as I became, as my heart was in it, you know, and my dad said something that was so key to me, man, and I take this every day as I live. But he says, if you are passionate about something, it will become a priority, no matter what you're doing. If you have passion for something, it will be a priority in your life. You know, and immediately as those situations were unfolding, especially that Michael Brown situation, I said to myself, man, this could be me. You know, I need to stand up and I need to make a statement about this. You know, I need to stand up. I need to mature myself because it's the time that you really are going to distinguish yourself from everyone else, man. And for me, it was just a sense of maturity that came across me, man. Like I couldn't go out and just party and kick it with my friends all the time, like a normal college student would do, you know, and I was begged to do that all the time, you know, and I got my time in, of course, you know, for sure. But during that moment, I really had to lock in and understand the privilege of sacrifice You understand what I'm saying? I had to embrace what sacrifice was, not for what was going on right then, but for 3 years later, as to now what I would become, and continue to learn and grow. So for me, it was a maturing process, man. I really just got to a point or to a state where I was thankful for being able to develop and speak up for people that almost didn't have a voice to speak for themselves, man, at only 19 years old. I was very privileged to be stepped on or put onto this pedestal, man, in this area. And I was appreciative of that, man, because everybody is not allotted that privilege, and God doesn't give everybody, the discipline to do things such as that, and I was thankful, man. I had to mature man up. I had to understand, like I said, I can't do everything that a typical 19 or 20-year-old would do right now at this time, but everything, I promise you, I have to tell myself every morning, Brandon, this will pay off. Brandon, what you're doing will pay off. Just go one more day. Give me one more day. And what you do is going to lead to the next. Brandon, you give me one more day, and I promise that everything you do from here on will not be done in vain. Brandon, you give me one more day, and I promise you, whatever you do right now and whatever you have done in the past, will be made up for at this point. Brandon, you give me one more day, and I'll allow you the privilege, to do the best that you can, not for you, but for your little brother that's watching after you. You give yourself one more day, and you can honestly prove the legacy, and push that legacy that your grandfather and your father started, man. And it got to the point where I wasn't willing to give all that up, man. I didn't want to see that go by the wayside. It got to the point where now I'm willing and I'm working, man. Like I said, I'm working for the wife and kids I don't have right now. I don't know when they'll come in the future, but I feel not entitled, but I feel obligated to work as hard as I possibly can for them, so I can provide for right now what I'm doing. So what I'm doing right now is going to pay off 5 to 10 years later. I don't even know my wife and kids. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm working every single day as hard as I possibly can, giving 110%, from the time that I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to the time I lay my head down at the late evening. You understand what I'm saying? I'm working to do the best that I possibly can, man. And that gave me that humble spirit, and that gave me that drive. And I'm thankful for that period in my life where I was allowed to be, I say mentally cleansed, from everything that I was supposed to do, to live beyond potential. When you shake up a Sprite bottle, or when you look at a Sprite bottle and you see it, you don't understand that if a child doesn't see it. If you drop that bottle and you open that top, it's going to explode. You understand what I'm saying? You can only see what's in it. You see, the carbonation a little bit. But when you take that Sprite bottle and you shake it up and you put it through something, you drop it a couple times on its head, you take it, you throw it up, and you let it fall a couple times. If you open that top on that bottle and you let it flow out, nothing in that bottle is going to be left. Not a single drop is going to be left in that bottle. And that's how we are with potential, man. Everybody sees that energy to explode, but when we get pushed through that turmoil, when we get to that barrier where we feel like we can't go an extra mile, when we get to that point of that tribulation in our lives where we feel like this is it, I can't, I don't have any more left to give, you have to understand, man, that you're being put through that for something else. You're being put through that not for yourself, but so somebody else can see that they can make it out. And when you open that top to the world, when you open your wings and spread your wings to the world, man, there should be nothing left once you finish and once you get up out of here. There should be not a thing, not a drip left, man. Like, I always push, and people get on me and clown me, but I preach Kobe Bryant, man, because of his work ethic. Because of his work ethic. The reason why I would say even that I get up so early right now the way I do, because he said in one of his videos, man, I watched, that when he gets up at 4:30 in the morning, he's going to get 3 or 4 more workouts than the person that wakes up at 10 o'clock and starts their day. And when he lays his head down at night, it's nothing left. He has nothing left in him. So he knows his results have to be better than whoever goes up against him. And that's the way we have to think. As hard as we go, our work ethic won't lead us in vain, man. And that's what writing this book really was able to push me towards and pivot me towards a light of success, man. And I'll never let that go. And I'm always thankful for that.
Man, I was just gonna let you keep preaching, bro. You was preaching there, bro. Hey, man, you got a shout out with Pastor Kobe. Lesson for Pastor Kobe in there, man. That's all right, bro. That's all right, man. But that's fantastic, man. Well, I tell you what, man. Man. With that said, it's nothing more. We just kind of put a bow on it, man. There's nothing left to say, But before we get out of here, man, definitely. let people know how they can access your book, how they can purchase it, how they can reach out to you, whether it be for speaking engagements or whatever you got going on, man. Share with the people what you got going on.
Absolutely. So you can find me, you can find the book, first of all, If Obama Had a Son, The Truth You've Never Thought About, on Amazon, on Kindle, and also on bbp3publishing.com. Again, that's bbp3publishing.com. And also you can access my personal life or however through Twitter and Instagram, and both of those are Brandon Porter II with 2 I's, of course, Brandon Porter II. You can reach out and connect with me, and we can set forth whatever it needs to be. But those are my social media accounts, and also the same for Facebook. Feel free to reach out and invite. I love to talk and have some conversation about it. And I thank you guys, of course, again, man, for the privilege to be on this show. It's been nothing but an honor, and I don't take it lightly at all, man. And I'm thankfully, this was a great interview. Your questions were right on point, man. You got me fired up over here with your questions. What else I could say, man? But I thank you for that, Adam Coleman, man. This was amazing.
Excellent, man. Well, we definitely appreciate you coming on, man. I'm sure that the listeners will be as fired up as I am, man.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and special thanks goes out to Brandon Porter. Be sure to check out his book, If Obama Had a Son, The Truth You Never Thought About. And he's all over the socials, Brandon Porter II. So check him out. And Adam Coleman, my dude, thank you so much for hosting that interview. If you want more podcasts, you know where to go, KingMovement.com. That is KingMovement.com. I'm Sean Slaughter. And finally, brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Peace.
Yeah. I brought the Kings with me on this one. It's a movement. Yeah. I had a dream. I saw black slaves in 2018, pulling them big king with a crown in the middle, looking like tug of war. I guess they forgot the inheritance of the Lord, dying over streets when God gave them the earth. It's all in the Bible, just do your research. White man's religion, that's just fake news. The cross hit Africa for Europe even knew. This ain't black versus white, this is dark versus light. But racism might distract you from the Christ on sight. So here's the Visine, me and my team. Dark world, but we flipping on a high beam. King, K is for the knowledge, I is to inspire. N for the nurture, the G is to grow higher. Jesus lit the match, so we all on fire. You see a crown on the attire, know you looking at a fighter.
My people,